Hi everyone, welcome back to the London Premier League show. Obviously, we thought with the international break here, what better time to not much better time, sorry, to summarize all the latest Premier League action and maybe briefly touching on the international break. You see, there's no guest. I tried to get an Arsenal fan on because we haven't had an Arsenal fan on for a while, I think, and obviously with them doing so well, I know a lot of their fans will be sort of optimistic with their start to the season, or maybe I don't know how long they can stay in the title race for, but Arsenal fans, anyone that wants to come on the show, message me, and for the next show, we'll try to get you on. So we'll move on to the show with the topics now. First topic is Arsenal. Their brilliant start to the season continuing away at Brentford. Two questions for both of you. We'll start off with the game itself. How, or like the sort of topic based on the game, do you think they can maintain this, or how long? How long do you think they can maintain this sort of push at the top of the table or competing with Man City? I'll start off with Zafan.
Yeah, they had a really good start. I think the last time we saw any team do this was Liverpool in 1920. I think it was 9 wins in a row. I was speaking to Sion about this. I think it's very rare you see teams start the Premier League with 5 wins in a row, let alone three. So I think they got off to a good start, but then unfortunately they lost to United, but they did bounce back against Brentford. Do I think they can maintain it? Definitely. I think as long as Arteta knows how to rotate the squad, uh, their players come back injury free from the World Cup if they do go to the World Cup. I don't see no reason why they can't. But for me, the big decider will be how they perform against top six. They've already lost to United, and they're supposed to play Man City in the upcoming weeks, but that's now been postponed. So those kind of games are the 6 pointers that will be the big difference at the end of the season. So we'll have to see how they perform against the top six, to be honest.
All right. I'll go next on this. Yeah, I agree with what you said. Most of what you said. In terms of maintaining it, it depends. Like for me, Liverpool, obviously Liverpool. I know some of like Matip and Kanate, for example. I don't think Kanate has been like back from injury yet. He's a big blow. In terms of maintaining it with Man City, I'm not quite sure, but depending on Liverpool, if they regain form or if they don't, I think second is up for grabs. I think Arsenal more than capable of finishing second this season, which I wouldn't have said at the start. I would have obviously we all predicted Liverpool to win the league, so I would have said probably at the start of the season third would have been everyone else's sort of limit. But the way it's going with Liverpool, I do think second is within reach for Arsenal the way they've started in terms of pushing maybe City all the way, I'm not quite sure. Like the squad depth, for example, like City, obviously you lose Haaland, you still have Alvarez there. Arsenal, like Jesus, for example, if they lose a Jesus, might be a bit light up front, and there's a couple of other sort of crucial areas of the pitch. I know sort of defensive midfield, like for example, where if you lose a Partey, for example, how will you cope with sort of the injuries there? And obviously the World Cup with the like fixture congestion already. Yeah, it would be sort of difficult, but in terms of finishing second, I think it's well within reach. James, your thoughts?
It's interesting because I don't. They're not going to finish in the top two, so I think they finish third or fourth. But I think they'll be close. It'll be close. But I think Sanford says it. It just comes to playing when they play the top teams. It depends if they've got that bottle. Do you know what I mean? I think the proof has been Arteta. They've stuck with him. They stuck with him. So they're getting their rewards at the moment. His signings this season, I think, have been very inspired. A couple of lads from Man City who he would have known inside out have made the difference. But I just think they haven't really been properly tested over not just one game. Yeah, Man United, they lost. Well played, Man United. But if they have a run of like playing two or three of the big boys in a run of like 5 games, are they going to pick up 5 wins in that sort of run? I doubt it. So they sort of just tend to sort of drift off. And before you know it, I think like Arsenal are a team in recent seasons where like they can fall asleep and a month of the season's gone. And then they're like chasing top four.
Yeah.
So it's whether they can be consistent this time. I think personally, I think Arsenal will benefit the most out of the top 4 or 5 teams with the World Cup where it is now. Because I think they're going to still be up there, but just as the World Cup begins, and I think the break will come good for them. And as long as the players come back injury free, I think they will then continue it because it's like a natural break. Then that could be their month when they're not playing because it's the World Cup. That's where they would have had their wobble. And if they start again like they did, but I think the biggest thing, two things for me is Arteta and the recent signings. Jesus is like a different player.
Him and Zinchenko, they bring the winning mentality, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing. They've both won the Premier League. They both play at a high standard. And you got to remember, Arteta was like Pep's number 2 for a couple of seasons. So he would have learned a lot of stuff. And if you've watched the documentary, you can see a lot of Pep in Arteta when he talks to the team. But it's just gelling. It's just gelling. So, good luck to Arsenal, But,
yeah,
they won't finish in the top 2.
Big month coming up for them as well in October. They first came back after the international break. They got the North London derby at the Emirates, and not sure if it's the game after that, or 2 games after that, couple of games after that, they got Liverpool at home as well. So 2 big games there.
Two of the big clubs.
Yeah, 2 of the big clubs.
3 or 4 games.
If they get through those with, like, I'd say a win and a draw or 2 wins, 4 to 6 points from that, and I think it's quite impressive start to the season overall, obviously from the start, but then with more big games involved as well. So if they can get wins in that, then that'll be quite impressive. Last bit on Arsenal, but more sort of international related. Jesus, I don't know if you saw, he's not in the Brazil squad. I'm stunned by that, to be honest. I saw that, and I don't know what much more he could have done, to be honest, to not be in the Brazil squad for this upcoming international break. I'm not sure.
What is it for Brazil? Is it just a couple of friendlies?
Yeah, but I don't know, like, because
I imagine he's going to be in the World Cup squad, wouldn't you? So it could be that they're looking at other players. I don't know.
Yes, yeah, possibly, yeah. Just judging by the fact that I know Neymar, Silva, and all the usual sort of big guns, they're all in the squad. So not sure what impact that has, but surely he'll go to the World Cup. Like, I don't know, Razafin, if you had a chance to see that. Did you see him not called up?
Yeah, I don't see the call up, but like I said, I don't really take the call ups for the international breaks too seriously. But at the end of the day, they can just come up with a completely different squad for the World Cup. And we saw what happened with England. We thought Trent was going to get called up, and then he got pulled out due to injury, last minute changes. So it'll be interesting to see what the final selection will be for the World Cup.
Okay, now moving on to some of our clubs. We'll start with James, West Ham. Just your thoughts on West Ham's latest Premier League games.
Superb. We're just like, we've had a couple of seasons of good, and now we're just going back to the old ways. Like, I can sit here and say too many signings. The squad has got bigger, but it's what everyone was calling for during last season. We need a bigger squad. Well, we've got a bigger squad now. Now everyone's moaning that Moyes isn't playing the right 11. Well, you've got to give him time to find what the right 11 is. I think the frustration is in the Europa Conference, we're scoring goals for fun, we're winning, but when it comes to the Premier League, we ain't. And people are saying, well, what's going on and all that. Well, you first of all got to look at who we're playing in the Europa Conference, the standard. Do you know what I mean? So he can afford to play some of the fringe players, and they look good. Can they really make it? If he started the starting 11, he started against FCSB or the recent team we played in Denmark, say against Everton, we could have lost 3 or 4-0. Do you know what I mean? So he's got to get the balance right. That's the only thing missing at the moment is the balance. Like I think we'll be all right. I think the Europa Conference is just, smearing over the cracks really. But there's a lot of new players, and they're not gelling at the moment. So they needed to do one thing, and they finally did it. And they announced it yesterday, which will make sure that by January, hopefully we're not too late. He'll make the big difference when he comes into his new position in January, and that's Mr. West Ham, Mr. Martin Noble. So.
Okay. Wait, Jake, I've got a question because obviously West Ham is like you've balanced domestic sort of fixtures with Europe last season and season before. Was it the season before? Did you not come, or was it last season you came with the 7th? Did you have Europa League last season? And you still got to the latter stages of that, came 7th. So in terms of fixture congestion, I think West Ham have sort of had that. So I know some people say, like the fixture congestion, but I'm thinking that's applicable to last season, for example. So I wanted to ask you, so I wanted to ask you, do you think, like, obviously you said, I remember you messaged me saying like Rice, he sort of started the Everton game a bit sluggish, took him long to get into the game. So I was thinking, obviously you made a lot of signings, but I'm not sure if you bought any like midfielders, maybe to rest Rice occasionally, because him and Souček sort of play a lot of games. Do you think that's sort of a factor? Because that's the only reason I've got, to be honest. Apart from that,
the only youngster we got in terms of a midfield place is Downs, who we signed, the youngster Downs.
I know you got some guy called, is it Crow? Yeah. Is that his name? Some guy with like frizzy hair sort of thing. Is he a DM or something like that? I don't know.
No, I think he's left the club now. But
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I just saw him there last season. Hardly
Yeah, I
played.
think he's left the club now. But in terms of the midfield, with Rice is, it's not an excuse. He's been trained for it, but he's taken on obviously the captain's role and all that, yeah. So I just think he's putting extra effort in. I think he knows this is a big season for him. You know, he's got the World Cup. If he has another good World Cup like he had the Euros, it's going to put pressure on for him to stay at West Ham. Souček isn't having a particularly good season. Is Downs too young to come straight in? But then Downs has played at the conference level Europa and he looks really good. People were impressed with him. The home game we had against FCSB, he was really good. But I just think, yeah, Rice is like taking a lot of the responsibility, and I don't think at the moment he's doing well. Don't get me wrong. You know, I think he's an outstanding player, but I just think with the extra responsibilities, it's just maybe taking a toll on him. And Moyes has got to get it right. You know, it may not be a question of just, you know, replacing Souček with Downs. It could be just the whole formation just needs looking at, you know, from that midfield. Because I think in midfield, we're the lightest out of the lot. Defensively, we've got enough players.
Yeah, that's what I think as well.
Attacking now, we've got enough players. We've got about 500 goalkeepers. So I think it's just that middle of the park business that we need to get right. And I think that's where we're lacking a little bit. But how you fix that, you know, that's what Moyes is being paid for, and that's what he's got to do. You know,
I think you need to use your power. You need to use your power within West Ham Football Club to try and get them to sign a midfielder in January. Use your influence.
Well, you know me. I have a bit of influence. You know.
Yeah.
My voice is heard. My voice is heard.
Anything to add? I don't know. I feel like
obviously,
right. Yes, I know he's the like sort of the heartbeat of the team, whatever, like midfield. But like just couple games, I think maybe overplaying him, or like, because I don't know how many games he's played like in the West Ham career so far. I know it's probably a lot for a 22-year-old. Obviously, he's very talented, great midfielder. Just feel like sometimes maybe might need a rest here and there, and then I'd not see where like who they can bring him in for. Obviously, you said Downs. Obviously, he's young, but sort of an experienced sort of backup. Probably what West Ham need. Probably just
you can't get away with dropping Rice. I'm sorry.
Yeah. In terms of with the current like backup options, yeah, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like in January, you should use your power within West Ham. That's what I think. Go on, Razanfan. Anything to add?
I mean, as what Mr. Datson previously mentioned, I think it is somewhat in the West Ham DNA. You know, they have a good run of a few seasons, and then eventually it will come down. But more particularly, I've noticed with Moyes is that he's more efficient in cup games than the Premier League. I mean, we've seen this in Everton, even somewhat Man United. I mean, the 13-14 season, yeah, he got sacked before the end of the season, but was going to finish somewhat 7th or 8th. He still managed to get to the semi-finals of the AFL Cup. I mean, we bottled it to on pens to Sunderland. But when you think about it, Moyes has taken Everton to the final, plenty of time semi-finals. And then last season, Moyes took West Ham to the semi-finals of Europa. So he's clearly got it for cup games. Just not sure if his mentality or something, if he just prefers to go out for the cups instead of the Prem. But it's a little pattern I've just noticed within Moyes himself between the clubs he's been managing.
Yeah, the thing, West Ham, I think West Ham, like in the big Premier League games, like West Ham, you guys always turn up, like make it difficult for any sort of big six team you play. And then probably it's the smaller games, maybe like the Evertons. I thought West Ham would have won that, but probably just a bad day at the office. Happens to all of us pretty much. But we'll move on to Man United now. Razanfan, United, your thoughts on your winning run recently in the Premier League?
I'm delighted that we're off to a great start after the horrific 2 first games of the season. I think it's taken a lot of balls from Ten Hag to drop Ronaldo and Maguire out of the starting 11, but he's proven the critics wrong. We're winning games, we're keeping clean sheets. Yeah, that might be scruffy 1-0, but I'll take it all day long. The Arsenal game was a big win for us. It was a statement win for us. It showed that we can beat the likes of Arsenal, who are in form. We even beat Leicester. Yeah, you can argue Leicester on the worst run, but Leicester once upon a time were considered a top 6 club, and they only won the FA Cup 2 years ago. So it's good to see that we won 2 somewhat crucial games. And yeah, I would like to see us score more goals, but I can't complain. At the end of the day, if the 3 points are secured, there's nothing more I can ask for. In terms of Europa League, not too great. We didn't get off to a great start. We lost to Real Sociedad. Personally, I don't think that was a penalty. Not too sure how VAR didn't overturn that, but it is what it is. You just got to move on. Just got to beat the rest of the teams and just progress and just do what we need to do in that competition.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the centre back partnership, especially like Martinez and Varane. Like for me, I've seen sort of United their defense in the last couple of years, sort of the shaky sort of centre back partnerships I've seen. But I wanted to get your thoughts, both of you, on like that partnership, especially because I think is probably your best sort of centre back partnership in years. Delo, I don't think's a great right back, but I think with those two sort of there, especially Varane on the right side of the pitch, I think it is like being able to kind of support him. I think suddenly Delo looks like a great right back now, and I think Malacia's sort of settled in well, sort of overtaken Luke Shaw in the pecking order like, as of now. Obviously, Shaw doesn't mean his time's over and all of that. If football changes, you can win your place back in the team if through injury or Malacia bad form, and then Shaw comes back in. It's just about taking your chance when it comes. But I don't know if you two had anything to say on the centre back partnership or sort of the back four in general, because Ten Hag seems to have a settled back four now, and obviously De Gea is still the number one. Any of you have any?
I think you're right. I think it's confidence as well. You know, you can sense. The Sanford said it. You know, he was big enough to drop key players that clearly were having an effect on other players. You know, and you know the way that back four is now. You know who's missing from that back four is Maguire. You know? And so, like, you know, then Ronaldo now knows that he's not guaranteed anything. It gives the
Casemiro
other
as well. Casemiro and McTominay still.
That's what you've got to do. That's the tough sort of part of management. You know, you're like he's come in, he inherits players, he knows what he wants. It's just a question of whether you're big enough to do that. He's trying to mold himself, the manager of United, into like the next Pep or the next Klopp. You've got to start by doing that. You know, and look what's happened. You're talking about the back four now, that centre partnership. Players were being criticised left, right, and centre during the Brentford game. Which one's really gone missing since that Brentford game is Maguire. You know, and he's bought. You know, I know there was injury, but that's, you know, now you sort of think like you can be 5'4" and be a centre back. You know, or whatever. I don't know how tall the guy is, but do you know what I mean? It's just that confidence. It's that confidence. It's that belief. And you look at if you're a player in that Man United squad now, you're not walking into the team sheet on the Saturday morning or the Friday night thinking, right, well, I know Maguire starts, I know Ronaldo. Do you know what I mean? Anyone starts. And that's come from the manager, so good on him. And if he can maintain it, they've won their last 4 in the Premier League. You know, they're like in good form. You think of like, if they can continue that, and like Rosantham said, they're picking up key points against big clubs, like the game against Arsenal. If they can pick up 4 points when they play Arsenal, City, Liverpool, they're back in the race. But then what might let them down is when they go to play, you know, people lower than them, like Notts Forest and teams like that. Do you know what I mean? That's the problem. You know, it might take another season for United to really get that confidence and that, like, you know, you think, you know, certainly 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5-6 years ago, Old Trafford, you don't want to go Old Trafford.
Yeah.
Last 5 years, everyone's happy to go to Old Trafford because you know you've got a chance.
Fortress it was. Yeah.
But I'm pleased for him. I'm pleased for him because they're having a rough deal with managers over the last so many years. You know, at least this one might get it right and have 3 or 4 good seasons.
Yeah. A quick word on Ten Hag though. Obviously, I like the fact that he's not afraid to drop big names. He's not bothered about sort of pandering to the media or like having mates within like the media. He's just all about what happens on the pitch, and yeah, whatever the outside noise is, he doesn't really pay much attention to that, which is probably the thing I like the most about him. Seems very sort of disciplined in terms of his principles and stuff like that. But moving into Chelsea now, obviously inconsistency continues. Obviously, we win 2, we draw 1, we lose 2, draw again. So it's up and down. Obviously, I think, is this the first show since we've sacked Tuchel?
Yeah. I think, so what do you do? You just sack your manager. That's what you do. Sack your manager.
Yeah. So the thing I would say, obviously, Todd Bowley, this is his manager. He would say, for example, he would say Tuchel wasn't my manager, but now it's about him sort of stamping, putting his stamp on the club now, because you're not Abramovich, you're your own owner. So he's given Potter a 5-year contract, 12 million a year. So you can't really sack him, otherwise the payout will be ridiculous. Like Abramovich only paid Mourinho when he got sacked the first time 20 million. That's the most Abramovich ever paid a manager. So Bowley, this is his manager, sort of his project now. He has to be patient with it, even if sort of results don't go his way at the start. This is a process. Obviously, I know Arsenal fans, they know more about anyone about the word process. But yeah, our fans, we're not really, even in the latter stages of the Abramovich years, we didn't win the league in Abramovich's last 5 years in charge of the club as owner. So who are we? Like, we can't just demand instant success that, oh, we need the Prem, because Abramovich, usually you sack a manager first 2 years after sacking that you win the Prem. That's not how it works anymore. If you see sort of the two most consistent clubs over the last 5 years, Liverpool and Man City, is building sort of, how long Pep's been there, since 2016, Klopp since 2015. So sort of they've been there long term, obviously molded the squad in their image. And yeah, that's how you have to do it now. Because I think those days of just sacking a manager and just quick fix, win a couple trophies, win the league here and there, I think those days are over. So Potter, obviously, this isn't his team. I know we've obviously just spent a lot in the transfer window, but you have to give Potter 3 years minimum to, even if you don't win sort of the league, or even if you don't win any trophy in general, obviously you still ideally like to win sort of the cup competitions where sort of it's a shorter period and you can get a bit of luck along the way. But in terms of Premier League and sort of Champions League, but I'll say mainly Premier League, you have to give them sort of years to sort of build the squad and get rid of the players they don't like, attitude, ability, whatever it is. So I think he needs time. Obviously, our fans, I don't know if our fan base will give him the time, but obviously I will. And yeah, I don't know if any of you have. Oh, I'll talk about the Salzburg game, Potter's first game. Sort of same old, to be honest. If you didn't tell me Potter was there, I would have assumed there's still Tuchel there, because our build-up play is sort of promising, but when it gets to the final third, we can't finish. Our finishing is, as I said it, since I started watching this club, is the worst finishing I've ever seen, and I've watched now for 15 years. I've been watching us now, and this is the worst attack I've seen. I know we came 10th in 2016, but that was just more the bad season. The players we had in that team in terms of attackers, miles better than this team. Is the worst Chelsea attack I've ever seen, to be honest. But
So, but still, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah. So just let me ask you a couple of questions then. Yeah.
Yep.
I know you said you will give him the 3 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be surprised if you stick with that. So I don't think Chelsea fans will stick with it after.
Yeah. I know our fans generally won't. Yeah.
If you don't win anything or do nothing, they ain't gonna stick with him. Fact, regardless of who the owner is or whatever. But you said you'll give him 3 to 5 years. But
I was saying like, if you don't win the league title.
Secondly, what is he gonna bring then? What is he gonna bring?
Well, I like
for me, I like it because it's a British manager. He's worked hard. It's nice that like big clubs will invest in a manager like him. But what is he gonna bring that's gonna make Chelsea different?
Yeah, so I liked his style of play at Brighton. Like I know Brighton played is similar back three, but they sort of played sort of more attacking football than us. Like our football sort of in the latter stages of Tuchel's reign. I knew sort of the sack was sort of coming eventually, but I didn't expect it to be so soon. But yeah, with Potter, I like his style of football. I think what he's done in his managerial career so far at Ostersund, Swansea, and Brighton, I think he does deserve the opportunity to make the step up. And when I knew Tuchel was getting sacked, he was my first choice. I wanted him. I know we were linked with Zidane, but Zidane, I know he's obviously managed Real Madrid. He sort of managed big egos and stuff like that, but I'm not really sure if he really wants to manage in the Premier League. So I wanted Potter with sort of his experience. And obviously I know people are going to say like, what's he won and stuff like that, but I do think you won't know until you've given someone that chance. So I do think he deserves that chance to manage us. I was very happy with him. I wanted him appointed once I knew Tuchel was going. I would have personally given Tuchel maybe till Christmas, sort of, because we literally sacked him weeks after, not even a week, was it a week or two after we just backed him in the transfer window. So sort of a bit of a surprising decision, but obviously Bowley's the owner now and Potter, that's his manager now. So if he has to be patient with him. Bowley has to, but obviously our fans historically with what we've won sort of mainly in the Abramovich era over the last 20 years, they're naturally going to probably be impatient if we don't compete for the league, which is probably unrealistic. In terms of cup competitions, though, there's no excuse or there's no reason why like an FA Cup, Carabao Cup, you should be competing for that every year, because that's 6-7 games to win a trophy. So, but in terms of the league, that's not as simple as just just turn up and win the league, because the teams you're competing against have sort of built sort of solid foundations over the last 5 to 7 years in terms of Liverpool and Man City. That's probably what I would say on that. I don't know if you guys have anything to add on that. Nothing. boy.
Personally, I don't agree with the sacking.
Yeah. I think it was probably a bit too soon, but I think it wasn't like too distant in the future. I think by Christmas, I think it would have unraveled because if you saw like even the latter stages of last season, the football started becoming it became dire. It became dire. We were hardly creating chances, very predictable and stuff like that. And he was playing players out of position. I don't know, like if you guys were watching us, players out of position where I'm like, really? Like, I'm not getting this Ziyech right wing back. Not saying like not taking the blame away from the players because our players were sort of poor, but Tuchel, he definitely played this part in sort of our bad form. I'll probably say from end of February to pretty much now. If you look at our results outside of the cups, very inconsistent, very up and down in the league. So, but I do agree though. I think it was harsh, probably, but only by 2-3 months. So probably it was coming. It was coming.
The sacking doesn't make sense. You don't just spend what 250 million in a transfer window, your biggest ever spending spree in Chelsea history. That's just your indication saying, I'm gonna back my manager. That is you basically in a nutshell saying you're gonna back him. And then go back on your word, go back on all these players you signed, and to sack him, it doesn't make sense. It's just, if anything, I feel sorry for Potter because he's now put in a position where he's having to manage players that he probably doesn't even want. Players like Aubameyang, we've seen what kind of ego, the behavior he displayed at Arsenal towards the end. Someone like Tuchel might be able to manage him because he's had that previous experience
So, I
and
mean,
management of.
he came for Tuchel, in fact, yeah.
That was basically a Tuchel signing. That wasn't a Bowley signing or a Chelsea board of directors. That was purely a Tuchel signing. No club would want to sign unless you're like Man United. Want to sign what Aubameyang's 33-year-old, basically went off to Barcelona to retire. Then now he's back in the Prem. It's just, I guess you can somewhat say he's washed. I don't really see why they needed to. I mean, yes, they needed a striker, but Aubameyang was not the right decision. It was just a panic signing. The way I saw it.
100%. That's what happens when you leave signings to deadline day. Zakaria, injury-prone midfielder on deadline day. Like Potter, I doubt Potter. Let's say if he was here for a year, he goes and buys Zakaria injury-prone players now. Because I know Brighton sort of similar to Liverpool in the fact that they sort of analyze players like their sort of past like injury records and all them sort of statistics, sort of what they call the data or whatever they sort of research like when they're before they buy players. But obviously, I agree with back in Tuchel because I know they said Bowley and Tuchel they sort of their visions didn't align. They had disagreements in the transfer window. Bowley wanted Ronaldo, apparently Tuchel didn't. So just multiple factors sort of contributing to sacking. But I agree, you don't sort of buy what pretty much are Tuchel players and then you just literally sack him what seconds later or days later. But yeah, that's pretty much the circus at Chelsea Football Club. Is nothing new. The last 20 years, it's been like this. So,
but I genuinely believe the owners are setting up Potter to fail because like what we're saying about the DNA at West Ham, the same as at Chelsea. You got a new owner, but only the owner's changed. The owner can only do so much. You still have people lower down than him in the hierarchy that will still have a say because Bowley might be the CEO or the owner of the company, but he can only have so much input.
Well, you know why? You know why he's got so much input right now? It's because we've sacked all the people below him. He's the DOF right now, so I don't want him on DOF.
The DNA hasn't changed yet. As far as I'm concerned, because we're still sacking. Well, Chelsea are still sacking managers that they used to.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to give them time, the process, like what Pep and Klopp have through their club. But I don't really see that happening with Chelsea. I'll be honest. I mean. Potter's not really proven. He's not like a trophy mentality winner kind of thing. So if I'm being honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Potter doesn't last more than a year or two. I feel like this is like another Frank Lampard situation. You just bring in a British manager, you see how it goes, results don't turn up, and you just do another sacking. Personally, I do think Tuchel wasn't performing, but I don't think it was enough to give him the sack. If anything, you're just gonna probably finish where Tuchel would have finished, but with more expenses now. And imagine Potter, he has to now play Aubameyang, who probably is their best striker right now. He's pretty much got his hand tied. Imagine trying to play someone, and if Aubameyang's attitude still stinks from the Arsenal days, it's just going to be horrific for him.
Yeah, I'll probably say the only, obviously, I pretty much agree with what both of you have said. The only sort of encouragement or sort of ounce of belief I have that things might change in terms of the whole sacking managers. So, because I don't know if you guys are seeing, but we're bringing in sort of Brighton, their sort of chief scout, whatever you call them, DOF. Well, I know we're linked with other DOFs from sort of Europe and in and around the continent, but we're bringing in sort of Potter, not just his assistant. Obviously, when managers take over clubs, usually their assistant come with them, their assistants, but other sort of scouting sort of networks at Brighton. Like I know, I think one of them's coming in as well. So I mean, they're bringing loads of stuff, not just his assistant. That's the only sort of.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's
Yeah. We're bringing like sort of Brighton their scout as well. He's like we're looking to get him in as well. So that's the only change from previous sort of managers, especially in the Abramovich era. You'd sack a manager and their assistant comes in.
But let's not be surprised, as we've said, that Sion's wrong and Chelsea are looking for a new manager at the start of next season.
No, I'm not disagreeing.
Let's move on.
I'm just saying the only sort of change.
Let's move on. We've had enough Chelsea talk.
Yeah, well, listen, man, West Ham, whatever. International break. Last topic. Not going to talk about the other countries. Just going to talk about England. Just your brief thoughts on sort of Southgate's selection. I
won't go on the selection. I will in a second, but just to throw it out there, clearly, this is Southgate's last hurrah is the World Cup, yeah? Because he's sticking with players that aren't even playing first team football. So for me, he's investing, okay, it's whatever it is, this other tour, this Nations Cup or whatever they call it, but he's clearly investing in those to take them to the World Cup, regardless of what they do, that'll be his last thing. So you can't, Maguire and all, how are they getting in the squad? Let alone possibly at 8 o'clock tonight, I'll be watching Maguire with the captain's armband. Is hilarious.
I won't watch it.
It's hilarious. I won't watch it. Now, Maguire, I'm not knocking Maguire, right? You know, he's a professional footballer. He's a good footballer. He's done a service in Sheffield United, I think, Leicester, now Man United. But he's not in form. He's not in form. He does not deserve to be in the starting 11 if he is in the starting 11. And he don't even deserve to be on the bench, let alone in the squad. You know, but, you know, there's other players he needs to be looking at. You know, so I just feel that Southgate has made up his own mind that he knows, depending on what sort of contract he's got with the FA, but he'll go to the World Cup in November. He may get us to the quarterfinals. I have a feeling we're going to lose to a dodgy team in the quarterfinal because we've had our chances to win it 4 years ago, or whatever, 4 years ago and 2 years ago with the Euros, and then here step down, and that's where Graham Potter should have then come in after being at Brighton to become the New England manager. But now he's ruined that by going to Chelsea. But that's another story.
Yeah, I'll just be brief. To me, it's just the two sort of players I feel like been most hard done by. For me, Ben White and Jadon Sancho. I mean, Southgate, as you said, he says he picks players on form. For me, Jadon Sancho has been sort of England's most informed winger this season. So contradiction there. Ben White for me as well been robbed. Southgate, to be honest, I'm not surprised. He's sort of throughout his sort of England tenure, he's always sort of gone with what he knows from previous tournaments. I don't know if maybe favourites is a bit harsh, but definitely players that he knows tried and trusted or whatever, tried and tested, whatever they say. I feel like that's sort of been his sort of main sort of principle throughout his time as England manager. So I'm not surprised, but I do feel for Sancho and Ben White, to be honest, those two, the sort of standout absentees from the squad. Razanthan, lastly, before we wrap up.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not too fussed about the England lineup, to be honest. I mean, any United place that's not in it, that's just great for me. I'm always going to prioritize my team over my national team. But yeah, I do agree with you guys. I think there is some hint of favoritism. Like, I don't think people like Maguire should be getting in. They're just getting in on merit based on the fact that of whatever they did in the past. I mean, initially after the 2018 World Cup, I did have hopes for Southgate. I thought, it was an impressive run. I didn't agree with it, but it somewhat worked. And then with the Euros, I mean, I've already made it clear, the final, the selection, the way he took it to the penalties, I did not agree with it at all. And I can only see that happening again with the World Cup this year. And I mean, Datsun said that he doesn't think we're going to get past the quarters, but I don't think we're going to get past the round of 16. I think we're going to meet like an Argentina, Brazil, or any, Europe club and then just get knocked out. I don't see us going further than quarters, if I'm being realistic. And then optimistically, I'll say semi-finals, but even then, I think we'll be scraping it.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you all again soon. And Arsenal fans, get in the DMs to come on for future episodes. Take care, everyone.
See you later.